My name is Bailey Rechtenwald, and I'm a climate change policy advisor in the Office of Governor Cooper. So I have a public school education. I'm originally from Durham. I went to Riverside High School. And for college, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I received degrees in geography and public policy and a minor in social and economic justice. And then later down, I went to Clemson for my master's in public administration, where I concentrated in regional sustainability. So I interned, while I was still a student at UNC Chapel Hill, I interned for the Department of Environmental Quality with the state through the Department of Administration internship program. And that was really definitely got me to where I am today. So I was an environmental justice intern through that program. So environmental justice is about the equal treatment of people and places within our environment. And the focus of environmental justice is making sure that folks aren't being burdened by pollutants and hazards in their communities. And historically, across the country, especially in the South, communities of color and low-income communities have been disproportionately impacted, like living near landfills or coal power plants, and have health impacts from that. And so the environmental justice movement is really to make sure that folks have equal access to the outdoors and aren't burdened by those environmental hazards. While I was in undergrad, I did a capstone project during my senior year where I worked as in a group, and we had a client that was the North Carolina Complete Counts Commission. So it was during the 2020 census, and the effort was to get everyone counted for the census, which can be harder than you would think to do. And so we did some reporting and worked with the Complete Counts Commission on that. So that was during my undergrad. During my graduate program, because it was a nighttime program where folks were working online, everyone that was a part of the program had full-time jobs during the day, and we were able to apply what we were learning to our jobs. And our professors really encouraged us to do research and papers that would help within our actual jobs. So I was able to do research on some of the issues I was working on already, and that it was great to be in an educational environment where they really encourage folks who were already in the workforce and kind of further their careers. Yeah, I think the internship I had with the state of North Carolina was critical to where I am today. So as an example, I can kind of take you on a journey from that internship to my current position. So I had that internship during the summer of my junior year of college in 2018, and I was hired on as a temporary employee throughout my senior year by the Department of Environmental Quality because I did good work in that program, and they really needed my skills that I had. And so throughout my senior year of college, I continued to work for the state. And then after I graduated and I still hadn't figured out what job I was going to do, a position opened up in the governor's office as a special assistant with the policy team. And the folks who I worked for at the Department of Environmental Quality recommended me for that position and were my references to help get me that job. And then once I got that job, excuse me, once I got that job with the governor's office, that led me to growth within the governor's office from a special assistant. Then I went and worked back with the Department of Administration for a bit as a policy analyst. Then I went for a year with the Department of Environmental Quality, where I was the Chief Strategy Officer, and then a position back with the governor's office as a climate advisor. So there's a direct line from when I was an intern with the state to being a climate advisor to the governor in the course of 5 years. So the office of the governor and Governor Cooper and whoever is in that position runs the executive branch of state government, which is made up of tens of thousands of employees, and the state government of North Carolina does everything from maintaining our roads and bridges, and when you go to your driver's license office, there's also Health and Human Services that run hospitals and Medicaid programs and health insurance. Our Department of Environmental Quality regulates companies for pollutants in our water, and so making sure that our water is clean and air is clean for the residents of the state. So the state government really serves the residents of North Carolina to make sure it's a healthy and happy place to be. And the governor's office is responsible for managing from the top all of those different programs within state government. And it's made up of lots of different offices, like we have a legal counsel, we have our legislative office, we have our policy team, which is what I'm a part of, where we work on basically advancing the governor's priorities for North Carolina. So as climate advisor to Governor Cooper, I'm really focused on climate resiliency and adaptation, which is the response to climate change. So we know climate change is happening. There are others who work in the clean energy space who are working to get us to zero emissions to slow climate change. But as we have hurricanes on our coast, wildfires, droughts, all of those things, we want to make sure that North Carolinians are prepared for those sorts of disasters and that we can rebound and be more resilient for when the next disaster strikes. So that's really where I focus my efforts, which includes policies, executive orders, briefings with the governor, managing our state agency staff who work on those topics and coordinating to make sure that we're carrying out those climate resilience priorities. I can give a specific example in working on an executive order, which comes from the governor and is not law, but it is a directive from the governor to carry out the mission of state government. Earlier in 2024 and 2023, I worked on a natural and working lands executive order. So our trees, our wetlands sequester a lot of carbon. They absorb carbon into our atmosphere and are really important for absorbing carbon and also for keeping us safe from storms. And so the governor was really interested in doing more work in that natural and working land space. So I worked to research different proposals and policies, draft an executive order, worked through it with him, and then he eventually signed it in February. And this is an order that sets goals to protect 1 million acres of our natural and working lands like wetlands and forests, restore 1 million acres of wetlands and forests, and plant 1 million urban trees in North Carolina. It's a big order. It's the largest environmental goal the state has ever set. And so with that, I'm now in charge of sort of making sure that we're actually doing the work. So securing grant funding to fund those sorts of projects to do that work. So working closely with the governor and also our state partners on those sorts of policies. So I've been interested in climate change for a really long time. Since I was a kid, I remember when I was in the 5th grade, I learned that polar bears were dying, and that really upset me, and I wanted to do something about that. It took me a while to figure out exactly what that would be. But in high school, I thought I wanted to be an environmental engineer. I was in an engineering magnet program. But I always had this draw towards politics and policy and more of the social side of things. And so I decided once I got to college to really focus on the climate policy space. And now I'm doing really a dream job. Like, it is exactly what I've wanted to do since I was a kid. As a high schooler, I participated in lots of environmental science and climate summer programs that are offered across the state. And now I get to go back and speak at those programs to current students, which is super cool to get to do that. But yeah, I've always pretty much wanted to do this work and feel really lucky that I get to do it. Yeah, I think it's really important to accept what interests you and really follow that lead and not try to be interested in something that you're ultimately not interested. So for example, I thought I wanted to be an engineer when I was in high school. I really explored that path. And for me personally, it was just something that didn't really stick. I felt like I had to work really hard at it and it wasn't really interesting to me, and I fought that for a long time, but eventually I decided to listen to myself and that I was more interested in the policy space. I was really good at English classes, at history classes, and to really lean into what I was good at and enjoyed. So I would encourage other students to do the same as they're finding their passions, to really listen to their hearts and their minds when maybe something isn't as interesting, to really go for the things that make them, that they're really interested in doing. So I think I would also say, in terms of advice, those workplace learning internship opportunities are so important. I think my story really shows how an internship can grow into a career. And I would encourage folks to, once they get to a place where they're looking for apprenticeships, internships, whatever it may be, if they don't like it, then that's also a good lesson to know what you don't like. And so you can always gain something from that sort of workplace learning experience. I tell my interns when I supervise interns over the summer, if this isn't the right fit for you and it makes you think you want to go in a different direction in your career, that's okay. That's part of what these are for, right? You don't have to love it. So any sort of workplace learning can be a learning opportunity for yourself, even if it isn't, the thing that you thought you would want to do and it changes your trajectory, then that's important to inform that.